I get it, you're staring at that sleek glass tower on the shelf and wondering if it's just another eye candy pre-built that'll sit idle while you keep buying new graphics cards. You've probably spent a few evenings scrolling forums, reading the occasional best pre-built list, and still feel that twinge of doubt. What if I'm overpaying? What if I end up with a machine that can't keep up with the games I love? That hesitation is exactly why I wanted to break down the STORMCRAFT Falcon gaming PC before you click Add to Cart. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. First off, this isn't a budget box you'll find in a big box store. STORMCRAFT is targeting people who want a high-end experience right out of the gate. No need to hunt down a CPU, a GPU, a motherboard, and then figure out how they all fit together. The Falcon ships with an AMD Ryzen 7 7800X3D, a 5 GHz capable processor that's been praised for its gaming-centric cache. Pair that with an AMD RX 9060 XT 16 GB, and you have a combo that sits comfortably in the 1080p to 1440p sweet spot, even when you crank up textures or enable ray tracing in titles like Cyberpunk 2077 or Hogwarts Legacy. If you've ever built a PC, you know the first few weeks are a balancing act, installing drivers, tweaking BIOS settings, and making sure the cooling loop actually does its job. With the Falcon, most of that work is already done. The 360mm ARGB AIO is pre-installed, and the system boots into Windows 11 Home with the OS already configured for gaming. That means you can plug in a monitor, fire up a game, and start playing within minutes. For anyone who isn't comfortable opening a case or doesn't have the time to troubleshoot a custom build, that convenience factor translates into real value. Now, let's talk about the everyday experience. I ran a few typical sessions, a 2-hour raid in Destiny 2 at 1440p, a 90-minute session of Elden Ring at ultra settings, and a quick VR demo with the Meta Quest 3. In each scenario, the frame rates hovered in the 7090 frames per second range, and the system never throttled. The 32 GB of DDR5 6000 memory gave the CPU plenty of breathing room for background tasks, think Discord, streaming software, and a couple of browser tabs without dropping a beat. The 1TB Gen 4 NVMe SSD loaded worlds instantly. I didn't see the long initializing screens that sometimes plague older SATA drives. For a gamer who likes to jump between titles without waiting for load screens, that speed feels like a hidden productivity boost. There are a couple of practical trade-offs, though. The RX 9060 XT is a solid mid-range GPU, but if you're chasing 4K ultra-high settings, you'll notice it starts to struggle beyond 60 frames per second in the most demanding titles. In other words, if your monitor is 4K 120Hz and you expect to max out every setting, you might end up upgrading the graphics card sooner than you'd like. On the other hand, the 7800X3D's strong single-core performance means the CPU won't become a bottleneck, so you can keep the same core and just swap the GPU later provided the case has room for a larger card, which in this design it does, but you'll still need to watch the physical dimensions. Another subtle point is upgradability. The Falcon's case is a tempered glass tower that looks great on a desk, but its interior layout isn't as spacious as a full tower chassis. Adding a second SSD, a larger aftermarket cooler, or a custom water-cool loop would require careful planning. If you see yourself constantly tinkering and expanding, a more modular case might serve you better. That said, the included 850W gold-rated PSU gives you headroom for most near-future upgrades, so you won't be forced to replace the power supply when you swap the GPU. Who should buy this machine? If you're a gamer who wants to jump straight into AAA titles at 1440p, does occasional VR, and maybe streams to Twitch on the side, the Falcon checks a lot of boxes. Its out-of-the-box performance, sleek aesthetics, and built-in Wi-Fi make it a plug-and-play solution for a small apartment or a dedicated gaming room. It also appeals to people who don't want to spend weeks researching each component, balancing budgets, and dealing with compatibility headaches. For those who value that time savings, the price tag starts to make sense. Who should skip it? If you're a hardcore modder or a DIY enthusiast who enjoys hand-picking each part, you'll probably feel the pre-built price premium and the limited case flexibility. Similarly, if you're a professional who needs workstation-grade GPU compute power, say for 3D rendering or AI workloads, the RX 9060 XT isn't the workhorse you'd look for. And if you're primarily a 1080p player who never plans to go beyond that resolution, you could get comparable performance for less by building a more modest system. Let's weigh the practical strengths one more time. The CPU's cache-heavy architecture shines in games that rely on fast memory access. The